The search for a new queen. And after these words the wrath of the king subsided, and he no longer mentioned Vashti, remembering either what she had said or how he had condemned her. Then the king's servants who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather all the beautiful young virgins to the city of Susa into the women's quarters, under the custody of the king's eunuch, custodian of the women. And let beauty preparations be given them. And let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti." This thing pleased the king, and he did so. Now there was a Jewish man in the city of Susa whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, of the tribe of Benjamin, who was an exile from Jerusalem, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon had taken captive. He had raised the daughter of Abihail, his father's brother, and her name was Esther, and when her parents died, he brought her up to be his wife, and she was beautiful. Esther chosen queen. So when the king's ordinance was heard, many young maidens were gathered together in the city of Susa, under the custody of Hegai, and Esther was brought to Hegai, the custodian of the women. And the young woman pleased him and found favor in his sight. He hastened to give beauty treatments to her, and her portion, and the 7 young maidens appointed to her from the palace. He himself treated her and her maidservants well in the women's quarters. But Esther did not reveal her people or her family, for Mordecai charged her not to reveal it. And every day Mordecai walked about the courtyard of the women to see what would happen to Esther. Now this was the time for a young woman to go in to the king, after she had completed 12 months, for thus are the days of preparation fulfilled, 6 months being anointed with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and beauty treatments for women. After this, she goes to the king, and she shall be allowed to bring whatever she asks with her from the women's quarters into the royal palace. She enters in the evening, and towards daybreak she departs quickly to the second women's quarters, where Shaashgaz, the king's eunuch, is the guardian of the women, and she does not go in to the king again unless she should be called by name. Now when the time came for Esther the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, to go into the king, she neglected nothing which the king's eunuch, the guardian of the women, commanded. Now Esther obtained favor in the sight of all who saw her. So Esther went in to King Artaxerxes in the 10th month, which is Tebath, in the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther, and she found favor beyond all the other virgins, and he placed the queen's crown on her. And the king gave a banquet for all his friends and nobles for 7 days, and he exalted the marriage feast of Esther and granted a release to those under his reign. And Mordecai was serving in the courtyard. Now Esther had not revealed her heritage, just as Mordecai commanded her when she was with him, which is to fear God and to keep his commandments, and Esther did not change her manner of life. A plot against the king. Now 2 of the king's eunuchs, the chiefs of the bodyguards, were furious because Mordecai had been promoted, and they sought to kill King Artaxerxes. And the matter was made known to Mordecai, and he informed Esther, and she made the details of the plot known to the king. The king examined the 2 eunuchs and hanged them. The king then ordered that a record remembering the goodwill of Mordecai be placed in the royal library. Haman's hatred of Mordecai. After these things King Artaxerxes honored Haman, the son of Hamdatha the Agagite, and elevated him and set his seat above all his friends. All those in the court bowed to him, for thus the king commanded, but Mordecai refused to bow to him. Then those in the court said to Mordecai, "Mordecai, why do you ignore the king's command?" They said this to him daily, but he did not listen to them. And they informed Haman that Mordecai resisted the words of the king, and that Mordecai had revealed to them that he was a Jew. When Haman learned that Mordecai did not bow to him, he became exceedingly angry, and he determined to destroy all the Jews of the kingdom of Artaxerxes. And he made a decree in the 12th year of the reign of Artaxerxes, and he cast lots to determine the precise day and month to destroy the race of Mordecai on a single day, and the lot fell on the 14th day of the month, which is the month of Adar. Then Haman spoke to King Artaxerxes, saying, There is a certain people scattered among the peoples throughout your kingdom, their laws are different from all other people, and they disregard the king's laws. Therefore it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let him make a decree to destroy them. If so, I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the king's treasury. So the king took off his signet ring and placed it into the hand of Haman in order to seal what was written against the Jews. And the king said to Haman, Keep the silver, and deal with those people as you wish. Then the king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the first month, and they wrote, as Haman commanded, to the commanders and the governors in the 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia, and to the rulers of the nations, in their own language. They wrote in the name of King Artaxerxes. The letter was sent by couriers throughout the kingdom of Artaxerxes to utterly destroy the race of the Jews on a single day, in the 12th month, which is Adar, and to plunder their possessions. Notes from the previous page. 116 As with Queen Vashti, our actions may have consequences that go far beyond ourselves. 122 Note that the king's decree was distributed to all people according to their own language, so that all could understand and follow. This is why in the Orthodox Church throughout the world it is imperative that the gospel be preached, Acts 2:4, 11, and the liturgy be celebrated, 1 Corinthians 14:1, 25, in the language spoken by the people, see also 3:12. 2:1 After these words, the events in this chapter take place about 4 years after those in Ch1, compare 1:3 with 2:16. A war against Greece, in which Persia was soundly defeated, took place during this span of time. 2:7 Mordecai's relation to Esther is that of both guardian and husband, a necessary social and legal arrangement and not unusual at the time. This would also be the relationship between Joseph and the Virgin Mary. In this situation, there was no sexual relationship, as demonstrated by Esther's virginity. 2:12 The 12 months were days of preparation and training. If these are the preparations to visit an earthly king, all the more should the faithful prepare to meet Christ the King through prayer, fasting, and confession as we encounter him in the services of the Church. 2:18 Granted a release indicates a national holiday and a remission of taxes, see 10:1. The coronation banquet of 7 days for a new queen would raise morale after the defeat in war. 2:20 Though in a pagan palace, Esther did not change her manner of life nor cease to fear God. God calls us to faithfulness in whatever situation he places us. 2:23 The goodwill of Mordecai was recorded, but not yet rewarded. Faithfulness to God is never forgotten by the Lord, even if it appears to go unnoticed, Hebrews 6:10. The true reward is glorification, not in this life, but in the kingdom to come, Hebrews 11:39, 40. 3:1-9 The extreme animosity between Haman and Mordecai quite possibly is rooted in an old tribal feud. Mordecai was a Benjamite, 1:1a. According to the Hebrew text, Haman was a descendant of Agag, whose nation was utterly destroyed by King Saul, 1 Kings 15:8. Also a Benjamite. Haman sees the situation as an opportune time not only to destroy Mordecai, but to vengefully destroy all the Jews, v. 6. 3:7 The month of Adar was 11 months away. Delays occur frequently in this book, giving time for the divine plan of God to unfold. 3:8 They disregard the king's laws. Haman's accusation against the Jews is the same as the authorities' accusation would be against Jesus, Luke 6:6, 7, and his followers, Acts 6:11, 14.